Nutrition plays a critical role in overall health, yet many people are unaware of the profound benefits of a whole food, plant-based diet, from reducing the risk of chronic diseases to improving energy levels and longevity. This way of eating has been endorsed by many healthcare professionals. What are the key reasons someone should consider transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle? As a part of the series, I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Supriya Rao. Dr. Rao is a board-certified physician in internal medicine, gastroenterology, obesity medicine, and lifestyle medicine. She focuses on gut health, obesity medicine, and overall health and wellness. She has degrees from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Duke University School of Medicine. And she's on Instagram as @GutsyGirlMD. I like that ID. That's a good
Thank you.
one. Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here to have this discussion with you. It's something I'm really passionate about.
Um, Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit? Have you always been interested in this, or did it happen as you were growing up? I mean, I think you said your mother was a big influence on you, wasn't she?
Yeah, so I've been vegetarian pretty much almost my entire life. Uh, when I was little, we would in the 80s in kind of upstate New York, if we had a birthday party at McDonald's, you would go eat McDonald's. So up until the age about 6 or 7, I would do stuff like that. But yeah, my mother was vegetarian, and so we ate vegetarian at home, lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, lentils, beans, kind of as our staples at home. And so I was going through high school and college. I kind of, stayed with that, but I was not the healthiest of them vegetarians. Like a lot of dairy in my diet, a lot of processed foods as well. French fries, like all the kind of stuff that you eat as teenagers. And then as I went to medical school, I started figuring like, maybe I need to think about being a little bit healthier. And especially as I started going through training with residency and fellowship, I found that the nights that I'd work nights sometimes, or I would work on call and be in the hospital for 30 hours straight. So my lifestyle wasn't the healthiest based on my job at that time. But then finally, when I finished my training, it was my early 30s, I, I was starting a family and whatnot. I was thinking, I feel like I'm somewhat healthy, but there are things I can do better. And started really kind of honing into what my diet looked like and what my husband's diet looked like. And then when I had my kids, I really was thinking about what do I want them to eat and what's important for me for them to kind of continue these behaviors as they get older. And I was seeing a lot of patients as a practicing gastroenterologist with fatty liver, and a lot of them had that typical standard American diet, very high in animal protein, high in processed foods, sugary beverages, very low in fiber, fruits and vegetables. And so I got to thinking, like, I can't keep telling people you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight without actually having actionable items behind that. So then I took on a further study of obesity medicine and lifestyle medicine and really digging deep and being like, okay, well, if I'm going to talk the talk, I myself need to make sure I walk the walk. And so, when my children were younger, we started introducing them to a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and beans. I mean, we eat beans every single day, lentils, other legumes, nuts, seeds, plant-based sources of protein, and it has become our lifestyle. We've completely made a complete shift away from kind of the unhealthy vegetarian food that we were eating, in my late 20s, I would say, to where we are now. And it's really helped kind of just our overall health, cutting out, alcohol, significantly, and just really kind of focusing in on what our activity levels are, what our sleep is, trying to manage our stress levels, all these kind of different aspects of lifestyle. But nutrition is something that really matters because we put food in our mouth multiple times a day. And so making sure that that food is something that's going to nourish me and ensure that I live longer, as opposed to something that's just going to make me feel good for about a minute and then wreak havoc later on, is become kind of the way I live my life.
You brought up an interesting point. You actually brought up a couple of interesting points. So it's possible to be a vegetarian and eat junk food.
Mhm. Yep. I like to say, Oreos are actually plant-based. Like they don't have any animal products in them at all, but they're
Yeah.
very unhealthy, kind of non-animal products, I would say,
It tastes
processed
good
foods.
though.
They taste good. For that 1 minute as you're chewing it in your mouth, they taste really good. But yeah, it's very easy. I at least was eating vegetables as part of my diet, but I knew vegetarians who didn't eat any vegetables and who just ate a lot of pasta and pizza and, other foods that just weren't healthy, sugary foods as well.
I know some as well, and to some extent, I used to be one. Um, you also, I like to say, why are we eating? Um, I'll ask you this. What is the purpose of the food we eat? What is the primary purpose of the food we eat?
I think it's different if you ask different people, because for a lot of people, food is comfort, food is culture, food is nostalgia. There's a lot of emotion attached to food, which is why it's very difficult to change a lot of these learned behaviors. For me, food is something that helps nourish my body, ensure that this machine that I have is functioning at its highest level and is doing the best it can because I have this one body and this is what I'm stuck with for the rest of my life. So ensuring that I fuel it in a way that it runs the most efficient and as well as it can. That's why I choose the foods I eat.
What I hear you saying is the primary purpose of food is to fuel our bodies. And I like to say the secondary purpose of food is all the emotional and social aspects you talked about. And then I like to say there is nothing wrong with enjoying your food. Just don't make sure that's why you're eating it. Eat because you need fuel. And if you happen to use things to fuel yourself that you really enjoy and you take pleasure in eating it, and there's social pleasure from eating it with other people and that kind of thing, great, wonderful. Just it really is. You touch on the emotional aspects. A lot of it, I mean, I know you talk about the medical aspects, but a lot of it is between our ears, isn't it?
There's a lot of behavior and emotion and just attachment with food. I've had a really bad day. I'm gonna eat something to kind of drown my sorrow in it. Or I had a really great day. I'm going to celebrate by eating my favorite food. Or I'm feeling really stressed or angry about something. And like food is one thing that a lot of people turn to. For me, certain stressors or anything, I usually turn to exercise or other things. But I think if we are able to separate some of the, and I'm not saying food should bring you pleasure. Whenever you eat, it should
Yes, it
make you
should.
feel good. I'm not trying to make it such a draconian kind of situation where you're only eating things that don't taste good. Food should taste good, and food usually and there are ways to make all the plant-based foods taste really good. But I think it's really important to kind of separate emotion from food because if we keep tying our emotions to food all the time, not if we do it sometimes, I think that's fine. But if we keep doing it all the time, then we're just going to keep getting ourselves into this vicious cycle of eating in an unhealthy pattern. If we can tie emotions to other activities that are a little bit more constructive, like pursuing a hobby, going outside for a walk, exercising in some way, meeting with friends, talking with people, social connections. That I think would be a better use of emotional kind of necessity.
That's what I like to do. I go for a walk. I've replaced a lot of what I used to get out of my food with walking. It's much healthier and it clears your head and you meet interesting people. You have good conversations and walking, especially if you're in a neighborhood or something or in a park, it has lots of social aspects to it, very much. You're a specialist in the gut microbiome. Can you give everybody just a really quick overview of what that is and what it means, please?
So the gut microbiome is basically the community of organisms that's present in our colon. And these include trillions and trillions of bacteria species, viruses, other smaller kind of microorganisms that are present. And we rely on this community in order to help our body run. it's honestly, to me, it's almost like another organ like the heart or the lungs, the microbiome. And the microbiome influences a lot of different aspects of our overall health, not just our gut health. And the foods that we eat interact with those bacteria in our gut, and those interactions can either be positive or negative. If it can be very positive if you're eating a diet that's high in fiber, high in plant-based proteins, high in antioxidants, all of these different kinds of foods. The bacteria ferments those foods, creating certain products called postbiotics. Oftentimes, they're short chain fatty acids and other helpful ingredients, which then help maintain the integrity of our colon lining. They help reduce inflammation downstream in our body. They ensure our immune system is regulating well. It's basically a lot of positive effects. If we eat a diet that's high in animal products, in sugary foods, highly processed, ultra processed foods, kind of like the typical standard American diet, and not getting enough fiber, the bacteria will then interact with those foods and basically cause harmful products downstream, which then lead to increased inflammation, which is then the bedrock of all the chronic medical conditions that we see in our society, like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, dementia, all these kinds of issues. So if we are able to maintain a healthy gut microbiome, and we don't, and that's different from person to person. It's not like if a healthy gut microbiome only has this many of this certain species or that of, whatever. It's not like that. Everyone has our own unique blueprint of what our microbiome is and what that healthy means. But we can ensure that we are doing the best for our microbiome if we are eating a predominantly plant-based, diet, exercising, staying active, sleeping well, managing our stress, creating good relationships with our friends and family. All these different aspects of lifestyle influence our microbiome. So it's important to keep it healthy.
So people don't need to be perfect, do they? Just
I
need to
think
be
perfection is the enemy of progress in this situation, right? So if we are so focused on being as perfect as possible, any slight deviation sends people spiraling. And then they kind of just lose any sort of motivation with it. Oh, I messed up this one time. I might as well just throw everything in the trash. But I think that it's human nature. It's impossible unless you have like, you know, complete iron will about something. I think it's really difficult as, just an average person to maintain 100% perfection. And I think that I wouldn't want that to happen. And then, you don't really get to enjoy life as, just trying different foods or whatnot. So I think if most of the time, if you are able to stick with this kind of these lifestyle changes, then does give you some room to kind of people call it cheating. I don't love that word, but to be able to indulge in different foods, for example.
It's interesting you say, have iron willpower. It took me a while to get that way, but over time, the thought of indulging in these things just I have no desire to do it. It just disappeared. And people look at me and they go, "Oh, well, you're not enjoying yourself." My own brother told me that. We were at a party and he says, "You're missing all the good stuff." And I was perfectly happy. And I told him, I know, but I'm enjoying the good life. I am it. Enjoy yourself, have fun, just everything in moderation, including moderation, as my mother-in-law used to say, you know, kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about protein and fiber? Because people, I mean, I imagine you hear this a lot that, well, if I don't eat animal products, if I don't eat meat, how am I going to get fiber? I mean, sorry, how am I going to get protein?
Right. Yeah, so I think that, there are a lot of ways to get it. There, are a lot of great plant-based sources of protein, including tofu, tempeh, some of the soy products, edamame, beans and lentils have, while, people say that they're a carbohydrate, they have complex carbs and high amount of fiber in them, which is great, but they also do have quite a bit of protein as well. Nuts, seeds, also are other sources of protein. And if you're eating like a lot of plant foods, there is a little bit of protein in plants as well. And so if you're eating a wide variety, you're getting a couple milligram, a couple, grams of protein here, a couple grams of protein here. So, it does add up over time. And so it's not like you don't need to be eating 100 or 200 grams of like steak every single day in order to ensure that you're hitting your protein, you know, goals. I think there are basically some guidelines with regards to protein and how much you should be eating, and it differs for someone who's sedentary as opposed to someone who is more active, as opposed to someone who's an elite athlete. So it's very different what those goals are. Whatever it is, it has to be something that you can maintain. Because if you are unable to keep up and sustain certain protein numbers over time, things change and you may end up, gaining whatever weight you lost back. With regards to fiber, fiber to me as a gastroenterologist is super important because, over 95% of Americans don't get enough fiber in their diet, and whatever fiber they do get, it comes from potatoes often. And that's because that's like the number one vegetable that's consumed in this country. And so ensuring you're getting a wide variety of plant foods, going from fruits and vegetables to some, whole grains and to beans and lentils, there's a lot of fiber in those foods. So we need to get at least 30, I like to say 35 grams of fiber. If you're getting 30 grams, I'll be happy with that. But at least 35 grams of fiber a day.
You talked about carbs. People say, oh, there's carbs in beans, things like that. Um, Not all carbs are created equal, are they?
Correct. So if you are holding out, a handful of chickpeas versus, a cupcake, for example. Yes, you can say both of them have carbohydrates, but one is a highly processed, simple carbohydrate that's easily broken down, whereas another one is a complex carbohydrate that has fiber that takes longer to break down and is really healthy for your gut microbiome. So I think demonizing carbs as a whole macronutrient is silly, and even eating a cupcake every so often is fine. It's just really thinking about what your fiber intake should be, and just thinking about most of the time what type of carbohydrate you should be having. And especially carbohydrates in the form of sodas and sugar sweetened beverages should really be cut out because they are often the bedrock of chronic medical issues.
What about things like you talk about sugary beverages? What about things like energy drinks, diet sodas,
Right.
things like that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, energy drinks have a lot of sugar in them still, I would say, a lot of the ones that I've seen at least. And they have a lot of kind of supplements in them which are not proven to really be helpful and I think can actually harm people over time. And diet sodas, I'm not a fan of either. I know that there is no sugar, but they have like sugar alcohols as well as artificial sweeteners and whatnot, which can interfere with your gut microbiome too. And oftentimes they're actually even much sweeter than sugar is. And so you're still hitting some of those same receptors in a way. And it's just, you know, they're just not healthy. In my mind, just drinking water that's flavored with fruit or, herbs or something like that is much better.
I
Or
know
herbal teas, things like that.
when I started my journey a little over 16 years ago, I was drinking those 2 liter bottles, Diet Pepsi. It was diet and it was caffeine free. So it had to be good for me, right? Those 2 liter bottles, I was drinking three of those a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was when I started on my journey. That was one of the very first things I gave up. And I also gave up alcohol simply because I wanted to start walking every day, and alcohol doesn't make you want to exercise. It makes you very comfortable sitting down in front of the TV, kind of thing. Um, as we go to wrap this up, is there anything you'd like to add? Maybe something we missed or
There's a lot of noise out there, especially on social media, and especially just everyone saying, eat this, don't eat this, carnivore diet, keto, this, that, the other thing. And whatever it is, I'm glad that you're here to even think about making changes in your life. That's the first step, is the behavior piece of it. And whatever you do going forward, just make small changes along the way. And when you make those small changes, then that's how you get big changes to happen. You're not going to all of a sudden become plant-based overnight and do all the things and, lose all the weight. Not everything's going to happen so quickly. It takes time. It can take months to years for these habits to kind of set into place and for your lifestyle to change. But if you do that and stick with it and keep showing up every day, you will see those changes for sure.
And if it takes time, that's okay, isn't it?
Yes.
We
This is a
don't,
marathon, not a sprint. So
yes, we don't have to be perfect. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate this very much. I love everything you're saying, and I think you're doing fantastic work.
thank you so much. This has become a real passion of mine, and I'm happy to help, my patients, people who are listening. And like Stanley said, if you want to contact me, reach out on social media. I'm happy to engage with people there as well.
Thank you.